to talk to you a little bit about IAP, Intra Abdominal Pressure, and learning how to breathe in such a way that it will have an impact in all your movement as you're moving weight optimally in the gym, whether that's a squat, a bench, a deadlift, picking up a barbell, dumbbell, anything like that. How do you protect your spine? One, for preservation and prehab so you don't hurt yourself, and two, for strength and optimal movement. Learning how to do this is something that has had a massive impact on my own lifting, my own safety, and my own spinal mechanics to keep me healthy, moving well, being able to actually move heavy weight, not just for one rep, but for multiple reps. And because of its great impact in my own training, I want to share here a little bit about how I use IAP and some things that I learned from the DNS movement system. That's dynamic neuromuscular stabilization. So what we're going to talk a little bit about is that IAP, that intra-abdominal pressure, learning how to create IAP with our breathing, and once we create that IAP, what we do with it. So we're going to talk first just a little bit about breathing, learning how to breathe into the belly and not the chest. So the difference here being, once we draw air into the chest and if we're breathing like that, we're drawing up into the thoracic spine. We're actually activating our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight. You know, when we're stressed out, things like that, we draw into the chest. We're often breathing through our mouth real heavy. We're stressed out, and it creates this fight or flight response in our system. But what we want to learn how to do is just draw into the belly. Now, of course, you can do this through the mouth. One way to activate it and do it with more precision oftentimes is breathing through the nose. So what I'm going to have you do first is lie down on your back. I want you to put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. And our goal here is to learn how to draw into the belly, get a big breath, and push that air out. When we push that air out, we call this a levitate when we're exhaling. When we're drawing that air in, I want you to think about that belly rising and that chest not moving. So with your hand on your chest, one hand on your belly, I want you to go ahead and lie down. And in your back, on your back position, one hand chest, one hand belly. We're just going to draw through the nose, intentionally close the mouth, and breathe into the belly. Just like any other muscle, you can train this breathing pattern as you would with training some other muscles. The next thing we want to do with that breath is learn how to take that breath and brace it. Now, what I mean by bracing it is we're actually going to draw a big belly breath in when you learn how to do that well. And with that breath, once we draw it in, we're just going to stick our thumbs into our obliques. And what I want to do is take a big breath into the belly and brace. What I mean by brace is you're going to get your belly tight, like someone's going to punch you in the stomach. Now, generally when we say make your abs tight, most people can make their abs tight, but it's much more difficult to actually engage those internal obliques. So there's a lot of musculature that runs around the spine. So what we want to do is activate that musculature, and one way we're going to do that is with our breathing. Once we take that breath into the belly, one of the things that we generally do sometimes, I guess, in Pilates type breathing, they talk about Kegels. Other people might understand it a little bit differently. You know, like even when you go poop, your poop muscle, when you try to squeeze and flush out, you actually can engage those internal obliques in different ways. Some people can actively engage that musculature differently than others. But what I want you to do is draw that belly breath in, and when we brace, what's actually happening is our diaphragm is driving down to create this pressure that goes circumferential all the way around the spine. So with that big belly breath, we take it in and we brace to push those obliques out. So think about it in a movement like the squat or the deadlift. You're going to lift a real heavy weight. How do you protect that spine? One of the ways you're going to protect it is to create that IAP, brace real tight, and then we're going to go into the movement. So we're going to start with just the breathing pattern and share here in the video. Maybe in some of my other videos we'll talk more about how we're going to squat, how we're going to deadlift, things like that where we're using this in movement. But for now, think about it going for a max rep, whether it's 1 rep or 2 or 3 reps, something like that, using heavy maximal weights, whatever is a heavy weight for us. If you're going for 1 rep, it's going to be really easy to grab that breath, get maximally tight and hold that rigidity. What we want to do is get real rigid and create that tension here, that IAP that we call it. And what that's going to do, it's actually going to protect the spine. It's also going to give you rigidity, which will have an incredible impact on optimal movement, being able to move well with heavy weight. Because the tighter you are, the stronger you are. If you're able to get real rigid and tight in your movements, you're going to be a lot more powerful, and we're going to eliminate energy leaks and compensations. As soon as we get loose in a movement, say I'm under a heavy barbell and I breathe out and that spine gets loose and I go into flexion, all that movement is going to require me to get stable. So I'm actually bleeding energy, I'm leaking energy out. So as you learn how to get tight with that breath, it's going to carry over into that movement. So in a heavy squat or a heavy deadlift, when you learn how to get real tight with that, you're going to be able to move that weight without any compensation going on in the spine. The other thing that's happening as we create this spinal stabilization is we actually create joint centration from here outward, shoulders, elbows, hips, knees, ankles, feet, downwards. So as you do this, think of the carryover into creating balance into your other joints. If you're having knee problems, oftentimes I've seen with a lot of clients, I look at their spinal mechanics, are they able to stabilize? And when they're not, I see this carryover into hip pain, knee pain, instability in movement and things like that. So I want you to think and how you're going to activate that breathing. I'm going to talk about one more thing here, and not just maximal movement for say 1 rep or 2-3 reps, easy to hold your breath and get tight, but it requires more cardio when you're doing something like a 5, 10, 15 rep, 20 rep of some specific weight. So think of that breath like a dial. Now that dial, I might turn it up to 10 and get super tight. And I'm squeezing as hard as I can. So turned up to 10, I'm going to be maximal rigidity down here, creating that intra abdominal pressure. But in a movement like a squat where I'm doing 10, 15, 20 reps of something, I'm going to have to probably turn that dial down to 5, 6, 7 so that I can breathe. So how do we breathe when we're moving heavy weight like that and still maintain that rigidity? So you have to start thinking about the intentionality of your breath, pushing out, drawing in. And one way I like to practice this is through planks, whether you're doing a straight plank or a side plank. There's a lot of other maneuvers or exercises you can use to activate that, but just for the sake of explaining this now, think about a metal container. When air's going in or air's coming out, it doesn't actually change shape. So like that, I'm going to actually draw into the belly, expand and get that pressure. I'm going to drive out in the oblique, and then I'm going to breathe. So I'm going to give you an example here. So even though I'm breathing, after I've created this intra-abdominal pressure, I still have not given up this engagement in the strong isometric contraction that I've created in my obliques and extensors all the way around the spine. What that is, it's kind of like your natural weightlifting belt. When you learn how to create that IAP, you take all that air and you drive it down into the pelvic floor from the diaphragm. You create this pressure that goes all the way around the spine and basically now stabilizes and holds that spine in one place. So take some time to practice this. When you get good at it, as your cardiorespiratory fitness increases, you're going to find that you will be better and better at carrying this over and using it in movement. For more understanding on how to use IAP, take a look at my videos on how we do the plank, whether it's a straight plank or a side plank. And if you got any questions, please let me know anytime.